Hi everyone, it's Phil Frost from Main Street ROI. I want to welcome you to today's presentation about the top 10 digital marketing trends for 2020. As always, we'll start with some housekeeping. I want to encourage questions throughout. I see Dave, you already posted from rainy Seattle, so I know you are familiar with the questions box. For everyone else, if you're not familiar, in GoToWebinar, there should be a widget on your screen, and then on that widget, there's a section called questions. You can just type in any questions you have or feedback, whatever you want to type in there. I will see that on my screen. I'll address the questions as they come in, but in the interest of time, if I don't get to your question, then we'll always we can get to that in the Q&A at the end. I always recommend you turn off distractions. That way you don't have to go back and re-listen to this. And then I get this question every presentation, so I want to address it right away. We are recording. I will double check that right now. All right, so we are recording, and you'll get the replay. You should get it by noon tomorrow. We typically send it out sometimes the same day. You might get it tonight, but if not, then by noon tomorrow, noon Eastern time. All right, today we're going to talk through, obviously, the top 10 trends you need to know about, and then I'll touch on what you need to do based on these trends, so some key action items. I do have a special offer at the end for the attendees, and I already mentioned we'll have live Q&A at the end. I just saw a question come in here. So, Chris, I will address that. That's actually the first trend. For everyone new, you're probably wondering who the heck am I? Why should you listen to me? Again, my name is Phil Frost. I'm the founder of Main Street ROI. Our business provides digital marketing services like SEO, Google Ads advertising, Facebook ads advertising, social media, as well as a little bit of WordPress development. And to date, we've helped over 2,000 businesses with their digital marketing. And my thought leadership has been featured in Forbes, Inc., Amex, as well as Mashable. And this is my favorite slide. I'm also a proud father of 2 cute kids. We've got Violet, who just turned 7 earlier this month. Emmett is about 4.5 now, but he weighs more than his older sister. And my beautiful wife, Erin, in the middle. We live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and I'm here in the office on 23rd and 6th Ave. All right, so let's dive in. The top 10 trends for 2020. And Chris already touched on this. Trend number 1, make privacy a priority. So I'm sure everyone is aware of this. You really, you'd have to work hard to avoid all the media around privacy. It's a super hot topic. The past couple years, I'm sure you've heard about the Facebook issues. And then since then, there's been some laws passed. You've got GDPR, that's the General Data Protection Regulation. That only affects the EU. So anyone surfing online in Europe. And then more recently, the CCPA, and that's the California Consumer Privacy Act. And I predict there'll be more of these laws and more regulation coming soon. It's just kind of the tip of the iceberg here, and California is leading the charge with their first law. I would be surprised if more states don't jump on the bandwagon. So I think we can safely predict more regulation around keeping consumers' information private, as well as having more transparency with how businesses are storing and sharing personal information. So what do you need to do as a business? You obviously need to stay up to date on these privacy laws. So if you haven't already, take a look at the um, GD, what is it, PR, as well as the CCPA, all these acronyms. Learn about them, and also learn about who it affects, because a lot of businesses are not affected by these laws. So just because the media is talking about how there's all these new rules and regulations, it might not actually affect your business. Next, so if it does affect your business, or you just want to get ahead of the curve here and start following these new regulations, I would first check with your software provider. So if you're using any type of email marketing tool, so we use Infusionsoft, and I know they have some GDPR compliance, and then this will definitely be coming to all of the software providers shortly, if it's not already with the tool that you're using, as well as making sure that you're compliant with CCPA and any other new laws. And lastly, just as a general rule of thumb, should be obvious, but the reason for these laws is because a lot of businesses are not upfront with what they're doing with consumer data. So I would recommend just being upfront on any forms as far as what you're going to do with that data, if you're going to share it, sell it, as well as being upfront with your opt-in and opt-out policies. If you're going to automatically opt someone into a newsletter, for example, you need to be clear about that on the form. So the days of being sneaky are pretty much over. An older school tactic would be to get people to request some kind of free information and then automatically just put them on a newsletter. And those days are pretty much over. You really need to be upfront and tell people if you are going to do that, and that if that person is in the EU, you can't automatically opt someone in. All right, so trend number 2, Google is now mobile first. So this has been rolling out for a while now, so you should be familiar with it. But if you're not, then this is definitely the year to make sure your site is mobile responsive. So Google now, so back in the day, I got started in 2006. There weren't really mobile websites back then. So naturally, Google defaulted to looking at the computer or desktop version of websites, and that's how they made their decisions about how to rank a website. Over time, you may know now that there's more searches in Google on mobile devices than on regular computers or desktops. It's a pretty impressive stat. But since that happened, Google saw that trend, and what they did was they realized they needed to change how their search engine works. And rather than looking at the desktop version of a website, they need to look at the mobile version first. So that's what happened. They switched to a mobile first index, and Google is now going to your mobile website first to make decisions about how you should rank in their search engine. And Google also uses mobile-friendly signals. So they're taking a look at the usability of your mobile site. That includes the page layout. So does your page look and function properly on a mobile device? And really important for mobile rankings is page load speed. So how fast is your site, or more importantly, how slow is it? And if it's really slow, that's ultimately going to hurt your rankings. So as far as what you need to do here, I would highly recommend you go test your website first. There's a mobile test tool and you've got the URL here, you will get the slides. So when we send the replay of this video, you will get the replay video. You'll also get the slides, and you'll be able to click on these links. So you don't have to worry about writing down these long, ugly URLs. The other tool you want to take a look at is the speed test tool, or the page speed insights tool for Google. These are both free tools, and you just enter in your domain or any page you want to test. And the first one will tell you if it's mobile friendly in Google's eyes, and then the other one will tell you if you have any page speed issues. So that one will give you a score from 0 to 100, as well as a color coding. And if you're in the red, that means your site is slow and likely hurting your rankings. So you want to make sure you get out of the red, at least get into the orange, and then there's a green level of that where you know you're safe and you have a nice fast site. Now, regardless, everyone should go through these steps to improve your site speed. First, I would recommend adding browser cache. If you use WordPress, there's lots of plugins that you can use. One that I think it's the most popular, most used is WP Super Cache. So that's a good one if you want a recommendation. Then another really big culprit with slow sites is images, and having images that are too big. So just a really simple way to optimize for speed is to shrink your image sizes. You might have images that are just really, really big, and then you're shrinking them down in the HTML code. Even though you're shrinking it down, you're still loading that really large file, and that slows down your site. So you can shrink down the size of the images, and then you can also change the quality of the images, and you can change them into what's called lossy or glossy quality. Lossy is the quote worst quality, but generally it's perfectly fine, and you wouldn't even notice the difference just with the naked eye. So take a look at trying to optimize your images, get them down to that lossy quality. That'll be the smallest file size, and that way it will load much faster. And you can do this automatically in WordPress using the Auto Optimize plugin or Auto Optimize plugin. That will automatically optimize your JavaScript code. It'll minimize it and make it just a really small or a nice small compact file, as well as your CSS. Improves the minimizes your HTML, and then it will also optimize your images. It'll change it into that lossy or glossy quality, and it will also serve up a mobile optimized image just for mobile devices. All right, trend number 3, more personalized ads. You've probably seen this firsthand. I know I have. When you're surfing around online, you get some ads that can be a little scary at times, that they know so much about you. But I wanted to introduce you to Google Ads targeting. They have some new targeting that's improved over the past few years. So there's different interest groups. If I just take a step back, I want to make sure everyone's aware of behavioral targeting. So if you go online, you surf around. So I'm a sports fan, so I will naturally check scores for college football games or the pro football games. And over time, Google learns that about me and puts me into a sports fan bucket, and specifically a football fan bucket. And maybe you naturally go to sites to learn about different locations that you want to travel to and plan your vacations. Google will put you into that bucket as maybe like a traveler. As you can see, what you do online will paint a picture of what you're interested in. And then taking that a step further, if you're going to, let's say, comparison sites and you're comparing Nike running shoes versus Adidas running shoes, you're likely about to make a purchase, and Google calls that you're in market. So you're in the market to make a purchase, and Google will put you into that bucket. And as advertisers, we can target people who are in market for different products and services. So it's a really cool feature in Google Ads that they've had for a while now, but I've noticed it has improved just how they're able to determine who should go into these different buckets. And you're probably already familiar with remarketing. That's if I go to your website on my browser will get a cookie, and then you're able to target me with advertising based on which pages I went on your website. So that's remarketing. You're remarketing to people who have already been to your site. Google also has customer match. That's where you're able to upload your CRM data. So if you have a customer relationship management tool like Salesforce, or we use Infusionsoft, whatever you have for your database, you likely have email addresses. You can upload those email addresses. You can also upload phone numbers, and Google will anonymously match that to their database, and you are then able to laser target specific people that are in your database. So it's a great opportunity if you have a fairly large database of, let's say, past customers, or even just people on your newsletter list that are aware of you. You can upload that as a customer match list in Google Ads, and then have laser focused ads just to that audience. And then you can also create what are called similar audiences. So a classic example here would be if you have a list of your customers, you could upload your customers up as a customer match, and then create a similar audience to to who your customers are. Or if you have a remarketing list of people who have made it to, let's say, the thank you page of your checkout, you can create a similar audience, and those are obviously going to be people who are similar to your ideal customers. So obviously, better targeting with any type of advertising is going to lead to higher return on investment. So the first thing I would do, if you haven't done this already, I would add the Google Ads pixels to your website. So you'd go through, set up a Google Ads account, and then you go into the audiences section, get the code that you need to add to your site, add that to every page. Once you do that, then you'll automatically start creating a remarketing list audience that you could target later. So it's not retroactive. That's why I would recommend you do this now. Even if you don't plan to advertise in Q1, maybe you're looking at Q4, you might launch an ad campaign. Add the code today, and that way, when you do launch those campaigns in Q4, you already have a remarketing audience that you can target. And this is totally free. You can create your account. You don't have to launch any ads, and then you'll start collecting data on your audience. So if you're not advertising and you want to start, you would, again, add the code to your site, and then you can start testing ads to what I call your hot prospects. And those are anyone that's been to your site who almost purchased but did not. So for an e-commerce business, that's straightforward. It's anyone that, let's say, added a product to their cart, made it to maybe step one of the checkout process, but didn't complete an order. Those are your hot prospects. For a services business, if you have a request a quote form or a demo request form and they've completed that, I would consider those your hot prospects that you might want to remarket to. If you are advertising, I would highly recommend you take a closer look at these different targeting options in Google. A lot of businesses, when they're just getting started with Google, they think they can just add keywords, and that's really the extent of it. But that's not true. There's all of these audiences that you can layer on top of keywords to be more laser focused, as well as demographic targeting and even income level targeting. All right, trend number 4, more native social ads. You've probably seen this if you use Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, or LinkedIn. You've likely seen native ads. These are ads that look just like organic posts. So often it's not even clear that it's an ad. That's what a native ad looks like. And more recently, the ad targeting options have improved. This is especially true with Facebook. Much better targeting options with demographic, geo, interests. Similar to Google, Facebook has behavioral targeting, and you can target by interests. You can also do retargeting or remarketing in Facebook ads. So you could add the Facebook pixel to your site. Again, you could do that today. And then later on this year, you could launch retargeting ads to people who have been to your site and show them ads on Facebook to bring them back and actually convert. You can also do CRM imports, just like Google Ads, like I mentioned, and then similar audiences or lookalikes. You can create those as well. So the first step with social media native ads, you want to obviously pick the platform that makes sense for your business, and they don't all make sense for every type of business. However, nearly everyone is using Facebook, so when that is the case, there's a good chance that you could set up Facebook ads and make it work for your business. That's true even for B2B. So the common misconception that it doesn't work for B2B, but the reality is even with B2B, you're trying to target a person in a company, and Facebook does have some pretty good targeting options so that you can be fairly confident you're getting in front of the person in the company. Again, if you're not already using social ads, I would recommend starting by testing the hot prospects first. Joe asked a question here: do those targeting methods work on search campaigns or just display? So just going back to Google Ads really quickly here. These work on the search network, on the display network. There are some other options, but I'm pretty confident here that all 4 of these you could use in search. All right, let me jump back. Trend number 5, video is the king of content. You've probably heard content is king. That's a common phrase when talking about search engine optimization or SEO. And when it comes to content, really nothing beats video. And in all of our tests, video ads and video on landing pages, that's has always performed better than just text and images. And this is especially true with Facebook advertising. With Facebook ads, you can have an image with text, and you can also have video ads. And when we've done head-to-head tests, the video ads are just head and shoulders above as far as engagement, which makes sense. The video is much more engaging. That's what people are looking for on Facebook. And then when it comes to landing pages, having something engaging on a landing page, what we've seen leads to higher conversion rates. And also, as far as a trend, the cost to create these videos is dropping. And I've actually created animated videos for as low as $350. So that would require you to draft your own script, and then you would record an audio of that script. And you can do that on your computer using free software. So if you had the audio, then you could go to a site like freelancer.com and have somebody create the animation, and then it would be your audio overlaid on top of the animation. Kurt had a question about social sites. Can you target life events? Yes, that is definitely an option on Facebook. For example, I don't know the exact targeting, but I know there's something along the lines of, just married or engaged, anniversaries, stuff like that. You can certainly target. Excuse me. You can certainly target that. So as far as video, you obviously need to create a video, and just a simple format would be presenting the problem that you solve with your product or service. So start with that problem, agitate that problem, and then explain how your product or service solves that problem, and then give a clear call to action. And you can do that, with let's say like a 60-second, so 1 minute long video. It can certainly be longer, but you could definitely get that done in 60 to 90 seconds and have a nice little video that's engaging and has that call to action to ideally go to a landing page on your site. And then you can also, so that would be an example of a video ad. It's got a call to action to go to a page on your site. You could also have a video on your landing page that could do the same thing, present the problem, explain how you solve that problem, give a call to action. In that case, the call to action would be to take that next step. That might be a form on your site, to call you, or go to your actual office. And I would also recommend in Google Ads, as well as Facebook, you can test remarketing or retargeting using video ads. So with Google Ads, Google owns YouTube. You can set up video ads right in the Google Ads platform that then you could target an audience that's a remarketing list. So you'd be just showing a video ad to people who have been to your site. Maybe they've been to a specific service page on your site. They're interested in that service. Maybe they even requested a quote but haven't converted yet. So you could, when they navigate to YouTube, you could have a pre-roll video ad that's similar to like a TV commercial, and you could have that displayed just to those folks. All right, trend number 6, you've probably heard this. Voice search is on the rise. So definitely more people will use voice search in 2020. It's pretty crazy. I have an Alexa in my house, and my 7-year-old daughter and 4.5-year-old son are able to go talk to Alexa. They can ask it the weather. I've heard my daughter say, Alexa, what's the weather? They ask for music. So this next generation is definitely going to grow up and learn to use voice search. That trend is certainly going to rise. And what happens is you end up with these it's called longer tail keywords or long tail keywords. An example of that would be, asking Alexa, where is the nearest paint store? Historically, with SEO, you would not optimize for such a long phrase like that. You generally would optimize for a subset of that phrase, like nearest paint store. But with voice search, we now need to, we can optimize for these longer keyword phrases. And what happens is these tools, the way that they find the answer a lot of the times is using what's called structured data. And I'm going to explain what that is in just a minute. So what you'd need to do, again, going back to mobile first, that was an earlier trend. You absolutely want to create a mobile-friendly website in 2020 for Google so that you're able to rank high in SEO, but also for this rising trend with voice search, because a lot of the voice search is on mobile. People are talking into their mobile phones to get answers. And I mentioned structured data. So structured data is another type of code that you add to your site, and it explicitly tells Google or any search engine what information is on your page. With local SEO, when you try to get ranked in the map results, a really important factor is telling Google what your name, address, and phone number is. And if you go to a website, it's pretty easy as a human reader to look at the page and know what the name, address, and phone number is. But you have to remember, Google's algorithm is just it's a computer program. So when they go, or a Google Spider goes to your site and downloads a page, so this computer program has to figure out what is your name, address, and phone number. That's not always so easy. So that's why we now have structured data to explicitly tell Google, hey, this is the business name, this is the business address, and this is the business phone number. And then you can take that a step further, and there's lots of different structured data out there where you can tell Google, hey, this is a recipe, for example. And now Google's able to know that this page includes specific information, and it knows how to store that information and then how to deliver it for different searches in their search engine. So I do have a help article link there. You can go learn more about structured data. And then there's a testing tool to make sure that you've installed or coded the structured data correctly on your site. And then as far as voice search, a great tactic to use is to create FAQ pages, frequently asked questions. So you'd want to have individual pages for each question, and then you'd put the FAQ structured data on those pages. So as you can imagine, there's lots of different structured data out there. There's actually a structured data for FAQs, and that's how when someone asks a question to Alexa or any voice search engine, that voice search engine can then look at the database, find that question, and a lot of times they're grabbing that information straight from structured data. Chris asked, how do you become a resource used in Alexa, Google Home, etc.? And yes, so it's not all controlled by structured data, but to give yourself the best shot, you would certainly want to have pages on your site that answer the FAQs, and then you would want to add the FAQ structured data, and that way when someone asks that question to Alexa, you are at least in the running. That would give you the best shot at ranking for those questions. All right, trend number 7, page 1 is getting crowded. I presented trends a couple of years ago with a similar trend, and it's getting even more crowded now. And this is a great example of a business we work with. So you can see I searched for dentist in Savannah, GA, and at the top you've got the ads, and I highlighted the Google ad there, and then it's a big map, and you can see that first result underneath the map is actually an ad. So that's a Google ad using what's called a location extension, and that gets you in the running to show on the map results as an advertiser. And then right below that listing is what I call local SEO or Google My Business listing. So those all three are the same business using different tactics. And then on this next slide here, if you scroll down, you would see these listings. These are the traditional organic results or SEO results, and that same business is ranking organically. You can see there towards the bottom of the page. Main point here is that there's a lot going on above the fold before you get to the organic listings. So the key takeaway here is to really diversify. You really don't want to be just focused on SEO, for example. If you're only investing in SEO, over the past few years, Google has added a lot of what I'll call, distractions, I guess, like away from the organic links. So you've got the ads right at the top of the page. For a lot of searches, you have the big map results. Sometimes Google puts in people also searched for, so people will click on those. I know I've clicked on that. You'll sometimes see images above the organic results. So there's lots more going on Google's homepage that will essentially siphon away some of that traffic that you would have received if those things were not there, like they were a few years ago. So a few things you'd want to invest in. You certainly do want to keep using SEO, get on that first page. Then also local SEO. That's only relevant if you, for your target keywords, if Google is showing the map results, then local SEO is a good tactic. Google Ads will get you right at the top of the page. Location extensions that will allow you to advertise in the map results, so you're that #1 listing as the advertiser underneath the map. And then I've mentioned structured data several times, but that will help you with the voice search as well as the local rankings. I did want to show you something, another thing I did not highlight here, but Google did change the layout on this page. You can see the URL is above the title of the page, and it will show the fav icon. And here's an ad at the top. It's using that same layout. It says ad, and then the URL, and then the ad headline. So what to me, those look very similar. And I think that's going to lead to higher click-through rates on ads over organic listings. Intuitively, that makes sense to me, and just from a business standpoint, that makes a lot of sense for Google to try to make the ads blend in more. And this kind of relates back to social native ads. Similar trend is happening here with Google. Google's results page, I see them trying to use native formats for their ads. So the ad layout now looks nearly identical to the organic layout. And the only difference is it says ad, but that can easily be kind of glossed over if you're doing a quick search and you would just click on it. Lastly here, as far as what to do, you got to keep a close eye on Google's first page. So they make a lot of changes and they test a lot. So inevitably in 2020, Google is going to be testing their first page, and it's safe to assume that their first page will not look the same come December. They'll be iterating through lots of different changes. You might even see a totally new format. And my prediction would be that those ads are going to look more and more like the organic results. And actually, I noticed more recently, if you scroll down, Google is including ads below the organic results. And again, those blend in, so it is harder and harder to see where the organic listings end and when the ads start. Nicholas had a question here. Is it possible or worth it to go for locations with US or state as best XYZ in Kentucky or XYZ in the US? So adding, as far as trying to rank locally, you do want to give Google geo signals. And to do that, you can add your location in the title of the page. So it's a little bit of a tangent here, but if you're familiar with local SEO or SEO in general, you'd want to edit the title of the page, and you wouldn't want to just go after the US. That wouldn't be, you're not going to rank for everything across the US. But locally, you'd want to narrow it down to a city, and then if you can, put in the city, state, zip code, and that will be a strong signal to Google that, hey, when people are searching near that city, then you should get an edge over your competitors because you are telling Google that is where you're located. Those are the customers that you serve. Louise asked, will having an ad make sure your organic listing is on the first page of Google? The answer to that is no. However, we have seen, as kind of a side note, if you ever reach out to Google support, sometimes they aren't the best. If you are advertising, that does give you some leverage, especially with Google My Business issues. If you're advertising and you run into any Google My Business issues, maybe you get suspended, your page is suspended for whatever reason, you can contact Google. Make sure you tell them you are advertising, or if you're not advertising, you can tell them that you will be advertising, and we have seen that expedite issues with Google My Business. All right, trend number 8, Google Ads smart bidding. So I've seen and used these automated bidding tools for a while now, but over the years, these have improved. So Google Ads, they call them smart bidding. You may have heard of machine learning, AI, artificial intelligence. So Google's rolling out different smart bidding options and investing and improving them. And a few that I would recommend you test are maximize conversions, target return on ad spend, ROAS, and target CPA or cost per action. So what you'd want to do, I'm a huge fan of manual bidding. I always have been. So again, ever since I got started back in 2006, there have been some automated bidding tools out there. I've tested a ton. And whenever I would test automated tools versus manual bidding would always win. Of course, there's always the cost versus time analysis. So you might not get the best performance, but it is going to save you a lot of time. So you'll have to determine if that makes sense. But recently, with one of our clients, we saw that using the smart bidding actually beat the manual bidding, and that was the first time I've seen that. And I think that highlights the fact that machine learning and automated bidding it's improving. Back in the day, it was just the technology was new, and it just didn't work that great. The way to test it is you want to set up in Google Ads it's called drafts and experiments. You can create a draft of a campaign, and you can run an experiment. And when you run an experiment, you can split test. And what that means is, let's say you have two identical campaigns, and one is using smart bidding. Maybe you're doing a target cost per action, and you want to drive leads at a cost of $100 per lead. You set that one up, and then the other one would be just manual bidding, and you would monitor and adjust bids yourself for that campaign. You can run that experiment. Google will automatically split the impressions between those two campaigns, and it will be a fair test. And then over time, you'll see which one performs better. So if you're familiar with split testing with landing pages, you basically send 50% of the traffic to one page and 50% to the other page, and then over time, you can see which page converts higher. And the same is true with a campaign in Google Ads. You can run experiments, and instead of splitting the traffic, you're splitting the impressions of the ads in those campaigns. I do see some questions. We'll get to those in the Q&A. Just want to get through these last two here. So trend number 9, SEO is getting technical. So back in the day, SEO was pretty straightforward. It was kind of mind-boggling how simple it was. So you would just need to put keywords on your pages, and you would try to get links from other websites to your website. And a link is like a vote, kind of like someone voting for you and saying that you're a legit business. You deserve to rank higher in Google. And if you had keywords on your page, then that would tell Google that you're relevant for that keyword. And if you had a lot of votes, you would naturally rank high. Those simple days are gone, and now SEO really requires some technical expertise. So I've mentioned this before. You want to have a responsive design for all devices. That goes back to the earlier trend with mobile-first indexing. You absolutely need to have a mobile-friendly site. You need to have a logical site structure. This gets more into user interface, UX, design, but also just from Google's perspective, having a logical site structure to make it easy for Google to find all of your pages. Make sure you have the proper internal linking. We mentioned this earlier, fast site speed. That's a big factor. And when you break that down, that relates to caching, which we talked about, as well as optimizing your images and optimizing or minimizing the code on your site. You should have a secure site, and that's a site that uses HTTPS. The S is for security. It tells Google that you have a secure site. What that means is it's much harder for any type of hacker to steal information when people are submitting the forms on your site. So if you take credit card information, you would absolutely need to have HTTPS. But more recently, Google gave a slight SEO boost to any businesses using HTTPS, and I interpreted that as Google just, they're trying to make the web more secure. That's in their best interest. They want to make sure everyone is comfortable searching and using the internet. So they gave an incentive to businesses to go get an SSL certificate, make their sites secure. So you certainly want to do that and get that little extra boost. You also want to make sure you set up your domain and page canonicalization. That's a fancy word that basically tells Google what URL do you want to rank in Google. Because many websites, you can access a page from lots of different URL variations. Classic example is www.yourdomain.com or the version without www. So you want to tell Google which is the canonical. Maybe it's www or maybe it's without. And then that tells Google which page you want to rank, and it also tells Google, hey, this is not a separate page. These pages are all the same, and that's okay. We have these, quote, duplicate pages, but we just want to rank this one page. And then we also mentioned structured data, which is code that you would add to your site. That does get a little technical. There's schema code. So if you go to schema.org, you can learn about that format. And there's also JSON. That's the JavaScript version of schema or structured data. That's actually what Google recommends. They recommend the JSON version of structured data. And that does require some knowledge of JavaScript, but that's definitely the direction that SEO is moving in. It's getting more technical like this. Last trend here is that tracking is getting more complicated. And the reason for that is people are now using so many different devices. So a good example here, you might search something on your mobile phone. Maybe you're waiting in line at the grocery store. You remember that you need running shoes. I'll use the same example. So you need running shoes. You do a quick search on your mobile phone, and you narrow it down. I think I mentioned before, Nike and Adidas. Then you go home. You're on your tablet, and you do the comparison shopping, Nike versus Adidas, on your tablet. You narrow it down. You figure out, okay, I definitely want those Nike shoes, but you don't have time to purchase while you're on your tablet. So then you put that down, and maybe the next day you purchase on your desktop because you know exactly what you want. You've done all your homework on the mobile device and the tablet, and now you purchase on the desktop. So when you're bouncing around over those different devices, from a technical standpoint, you've used 3 different browsers, and those browsers are not talking to each other. So the information is not being shared across browsers, and that makes it hard to track where different sales are coming from. So did that sale for that Nike shoe, did that come from an organic listing? Did I first search organically, or did I click on an ad? The only way to know that is to be able to share that data across the different devices. So that's the problem there. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that every year the competition is getting stronger, and really the key to success, the businesses that are thriving and doing really well with digital marketing, those are the ones that are able to track the return on investment, and they're able to allocate their budgets properly based on what's driving the best ROI. So what do you need to do here? You want to set up and learn how to use Google Analytics. That'll help you measure your marketing channels. I would recommend you set up call tracking to monitor phone calls if you do try to drive phone calls with your marketing. And then you'll need to do a little bit of homework here, learn about the different attribution models. So there's lots of models out there, but some common ones here are first click, last click, linear, and time decay. I'll give you a quick example, again, using me waiting in the grocery line. Let's say I Google Nike shoes and I click on an ad. I learn about the different Nike shoes, and then the next day I go and I Google that particular shoe, and I click on an organic listing, and then I make a purchase. So again, first day I clicked on an ad, the next day I clicked on an organic listing, and then I made a purchase. With the first click model, the Google ads, that first ad I clicked on, that would get the conversion. So in Google ads, you would see a conversion. It would look like that sale came from Google ads. That's because Google ads uses first click by default. Google Analytics uses last click by default. In your Google Analytics reports, it would look like an organic sale came in because the last thing I did was I clicked on an organic link and then I made a purchase. So that's why a lot of times you'll see differences in Google Ads data. You'll see likely more sales than you will see in Google Analytics, and that's because Google Analytics is using last click, and in some cases other marketing channels could be, quote, stealing the conversion from the Google Ads campaign. So you might see 10 conversions in Google Ads and only 8 conversions in Google Analytics, and then 2 conversions from organic search. And that's because people clicked on an ad, but then later did a organic click. So they did a search and then clicked organically and then actually converted. So you want to keep in mind the different attribution models, learn how to interpret the data correctly, and then also be aware of tracking limitations across devices. I touched on that earlier, how people are using different devices. There are some methods to track across devices, especially if the person was logged into a Google account. If that person was logged into a Google account across all 3 devices, then that's really straightforward. Google can track that. That's no big deal. If the person's not logged into an account, then Google's not precisely able to track it, but they have some different models that they can use to use a guesstimate as far as tracking across devices. All right, before we get to the Q&A, I do have a special offer. It's a search marketing bundle sale. So you can get 3 of our video training courses. These are in-depth courses. The first one is the complete SEO tune-up, where we go through how to optimize and tune up a website to make it rank higher in Google. Second one is how to create a profitable Google Ads or AdWords campaign. And the third one is an introduction to Google Analytics and reporting. If you go to our site, mainstreetroi.com/education, you'll be able to see these courses are $97 each. So it's a total value of $291, and you'll get everything for only $97. So you'll get 3 courses for the price of 1. And I will chat this link out. So if you want to go to that URL, I just put it into the chat window. That's mainstreetroi.com/marketing bundle. And I think I've got it here at the top of our Q&A screen. All right, let me go back. I think I missed a question. All right, Sam asked, do the CTAs or call to actions work better after visiting a landing page on social media after a video ends, or always leading them to the landing page on your site? Sam, I might need you to clarify that question. Do the call to actions work better after visiting a landing page? Yeah, Sam, if you could just clarify that. Oh, keep users on social media or send them to a landing page. That's a great question. We've seen better performance using both tactics. So we run a lot of lead gen campaigns on Facebook, and we've seen it both ways, where sometimes using Facebook's lead gen ads where they stay on Facebook, sometimes that will work better, and sometimes it works better where we send them to a landing page on the site. And then George asked, do your courses get updated when things change? Yes, they do get updated, and those are, you'll get the most updated versions of the courses. Okay, a lot of these questions I answered already. Okay, here's one from Kurt. In order for our company to run an ad in the map pack list, we must have the location extensions on the campaign active. Yes, that is correct, Kurt. So again, I showed an example of a business that was advertising at the top, and that was a standard Google Ads text ad. And then there was the map, and then the first map result was an advertiser, and that advertiser is advertising in Google Ads using the location extension. All right, Sarah asked, what do you do regarding SEO if you are a service business that offers your services across the U.S.? We are in the business of vehicle transportation. So in that case, if you have different service areas, you would have a service area business. You can, what I would recommend on your website is have a section called service areas or areas served, and have individual pages for your service areas. And you would optimize those pages for those different locations. And those locations will have an advantage of ranking when people are searching in those specific locations. Louise asked, does ROI relate only to purchasing a product online, or can it be tracked by phone calls or filling out contact forms? Our sales only happen after a personal intake call. So that's another great question. You can, as an e-commerce business, it's pretty straightforward. You can measure your sales online, and if you're doing Google Ads, you can have the revenue feedback into Google Ads, and you can see the actual ROI or return on ad spend right in Google Ads. If you are generating quote requests on your website, there is a way to send a unique ID, it's called the GCLID, through your quote request form. And then your sales team, once they close that sale, you can then import these GCLIDs with the revenue back into Google Ads and track these offline conversions. And that would allow you to see ROI, or return on ad spend, in Google Ads for these offline sales. And you can do a similar process with phone calls. If you have phone call tracking set up in Google Ads, you need the caller ID, the date and time of the call, and the call duration. You import that back into Google Ads, as well as the revenue of that sale, and you could get the sales data for phone call sales in Google Ads. Chris said, do you ever find that advice you are given from Google Ads consultants on the phone is worth it for more experienced PPC marketers? I've worked with one, maybe two Google Ads consultants that I found to be helpful. I say maybe two. The one off the top of my head was in New York City here. I met him in person, and we would go through on a monthly basis one of our big accounts, and he was really a PPC expert. So I valued his input. If you're talking to one of the people that is more on the front lines, they're not going to really give you great advice. I mean, they'll give you some advice. Their interests are not aligned, and that's the biggest problem. They're basically salespeople trying to push you to spend more in Google Ads versus working with you to improve the performance of your advertising. Because a lot of times, to improve the performance of your advertising, you might actually need to spend less in Google Ads, and there's obviously a conflict of interest there when you're talking to a Google rep. Layla asked here, when it comes to social media ads, what kind would you say are the most effective ones, boosts or ads? That's a good question. So I do want to clarify, when I say social media advertising and Facebook, I'm talking specifically about going into the ads manager and creating ads. I'm not talking about boosting a post on your Facebook page. I'm not saying one's necessarily better than the other, but when it comes to advertising and generating leads, the Facebook ads, you can create an ad campaign that will generate leads. But if you're just boosting a post, the purpose of that is more along to drive more engagement on that post, get more exposure. It's more of a branding tool than a lead gen tool. All right. Nicholas said, national B2B with no particular stronghold in any state, how to win with any local SEO or similar via mapping. So when it comes to getting ranked in the local map results, you would need a presence. You would need an office. So wherever your office is, Nicholas, let's say, I think you might have mentioned Kentucky. Let's say it's in Kentucky. Wherever that is, you would set up your Google My Business in that location, get it verified, and then locally you would have an advantage in that particular location. If you wanted to compete locally in other locations, it's going to be tough in the map results. However, I mentioned the tactic for a service area business. You could create different pages for each service area, and that will help you compete organically and get your site to rank high when people are searching for that service in that location. And then Gene asked, is tagging videos similar to articles or more difficult? I'm not sure what you mean by tagging videos. If you mean just adding tags like you do for blog articles, then yes, it's very similar. Oh, Gene said meta tags for search visibility. So you can, I would highly recommend putting videos on YouTube, and the name of the video is basically like the title tag, and then you've got your description. For the description, I've seen longer descriptions work well and can help those videos rank higher on YouTube's search engine, as well as sometimes Google will rank videos in their search engine. And then if you're trying to get a page on your site that has a video to rank, then you would optimize that page like you would any other page. And then John, yes, I'll be sending the copy of the slides as well as the replay. And then Goran, I just touched on your question. Kurt asked, in general, do automated bid strategies have a higher cost per acquisition versus manual bid strategies? So what we've seen recently is we ran a test and we were able to cut the cost per lead. I believe it was 120 maybe when we were manually bidding, and we got it down into like the 70s with the target cost per action. So you can certainly see lower cost per acquisition with automated bidding. With that said, it's definitely not guaranteed, and don't let anyone tell you you just push the button and it's going to work. Historically, for me personally, I have always seen manual bidding work the best, and it is certainly case-by-case situation. There are some big variables involved. Probably the biggest variable is your conversion tracking and number of conversions. So it does depend on what you're tracking and the quantity of those conversions. The more you have, the better. So if you were, that should make sense. So it's machine learning. So the more data you give it, the faster and more precise it's going to be able to optimize that data. All right, a few more questions here. And then Roshan, you asked, do you see voice search coming to play in e-commerce? I haven't personally used voice search to purchase anything. However, I know it's possible. But I do think that's going to be a rising trend. That is something to look out for. Sam asks, is there a good formula for video format to use on social media? So it's more about going back to that formula I gave you. So agitating the problem, presenting the solution and the call to action. It really depends on how complicated your product or service is. If it's very straightforward, everyone knows what it is, it's probably going to be a really short video. If you are selling something more complicated and you tend to have a longer sales cycle, that's likely going to require a longer video. However, if it does require a longer video, I would consider chopping that up, and maybe you have more of a teaser video as the ad, and then the call to action is to go learn more, and on your landing page, you have the longer video. General rule of thumb is shorter videos are going to work better in an ad format. You don't have that much time to keep someone's attention, try to get them to take that action. And then once you get them on your landing page, at that point, longer videos can certainly work fine. Leather said for speed site, how much Google Ads tags, Facebook pixel tag, and Pinterest tags actually slow down or affect the site speed? Also, could structured data slow your site? So that's going to be pretty minimal, especially if you use a tool to minimize your code. Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much that the structured data or the pixels are going to slow down your site. If you have a slow site, that's likely not the culprit. It's going to be something bigger, like really large images, not having your pages cached, and just having a lot of unnecessary code on the page, and you want to clean that up. Okay, I think I made it through everyone. So again, if you're interested in the marketing bundle, it's mainstreetroi.com/marketing bundle. Again, we'll send the replay in the next 24 hours, and you'll get a copy of these slides. And in the slides, you can always click on this link. All right, everyone, appreciate the feedback and the kind words. I've seen a lot of you saying thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and have a great weekend. Take care, everyone.